On the first day of Thalas's blue-shelled summer, the humans set off the fire suppression system. We were in Quadrant 12's Commons, a ring of moss-coated lounging stones, and drinking fonts roofed in a lattice of living glass. The light filtered down through the arboretum above, slatted like kelp shadows. Students' quills, fronds, feathers, the pictorial pads flexed and glittered, while orientation drones hummed about with banners, each one chattering in a different tongue. The college calls itself the Interstellar Collegium of Response in Concord. It exists where sky meets ocean in a perpetual shimmer around the slow world of Thalassa, and its charter is written on a bronze plate in the central hall. Save, soothe, stabilize. A simple text for a place born of complicated harm. The college was founded after the Moon of Two Promises, where two nascent colonies tried to coexist, and did not. One group sealed inside with failing scrubbers and rules carved into bone, one group stranded outside in dust winds, oxygen thin, and tempers thinner. 1,000 dead names later, the survivors drafted the charter and built a school meant to train minds and hands to go into fire, or vacuum, or a riot, and make something survivable from it. We inherit the paradox of disaster. We don't make it simple, we practice until our reactions are better than our best intentions. I am Vekri of the Tulant, and Clay sings to me. That is a human translation. My species senses pressure differentials through rigidities and cracks. We are not the most flexible bodies, but we have a sense for the shape of things as they want to break. My track was predictive rescue engineering, reading stresses, modeling flows, predicting collapse. My mentors say we are calm under pressure because we feel pressure as music. I'll be honest, when the human opened flame in the Commons, I recalculated my seat preference to be further away. We had been told about them, of course. The new sapiens, the chaotic species from a wet iron planet, their files were stacks of contradictions. High tolerance for toxins but fragile under pressure, permanently metabolically excited yet prone to torpor, social to the point of violence, strong hands, fearful, and fearless. They brought their own liquids with them, in personal bottles, as if ours were not good enough. Her name, when she introduced herself after the alarm stopped, was Mara Ose. She had hair that startled me, black coils, that captured light and refused to give it back, and skin the color of polished basalt at sunset. Her smile showed bone, and her palms were full of fine lines. She stood dripping, fire foam steaming off her suit jacket, and said to the dean of Quadrant 12, who was only a bit taller than she, "Right. So, my bad." Dean Heron raised one brow ridge, the way the feathered peoples do, which means, "I'm not impressed, but you will live." "Miss Osei, an open flame." It was very small, Mara said, and held up a charred disc. Also, I had a suppression lid handy. The dean's brow ridge climbed further. "It's a cultural thing," Mara added. "We bake in emergencies." "It is not unheard of among the Say," Hiron said mildly, gesturing toward a clump of silver-streaked feathers with bright hazard stripes. The Sir fluffed feathers in agreement and extended a forked tongue toward the blackened disc. Mara grinned, snapped the toasted disc in half with a tactile delight that made me wince. Humans are cavalier with their digits, and handed one portion to the Say. "It being a cultural thing," I said, because silence felt like a pressure fracture about to propagate in a room with too many eyes, "does not exempt it from being a hazard." She glanced at me. "Humans are good at eye focus. They have one pair and pour too much into it. You must be Vekri, predictive. Your file said you'd be a drip, which I assume is a compliment around here." "It is neither compliment nor insult. It is a classification." I folded my frilled edges in, to look smaller. "Fire harms. I dislike harm." "It wasn't fire," Mara said, "the way humans like to be precise during imprecision. It was heat, and bread." She handed me a sliver. The foam had kept the worst of the char off. The smell was astonishing. Volatile sugars, browning proteins, the ghost of yeast. Tulant palate is narrow, but texture and temperature are symphonies to us. The bread resisted my mouth with a spring that turned to softness, and it was warm. The warmth spread across my plates like a well-calculated stress relief. "The point," Dean Heron said, over the murmurs, "is that in the college commons we use heating coils, not open flame. Welcome to orientation session 2. Miss Osei, wipe up. The rest of you, try not to incinerate anything without a written plan. If your people's ritual involves combustion, register with facilities." Later I learned humans register a great deal with facilities. It isn't that they ignore rules, it's that they treat rules as expressed desires rather than boundaries. If you tell a human they cannot make something because of a list, they will learn the list and then find a way through it like water through a canyon. It is admirable and terrible. We were assigned teams for the Convergence soon after. You work toward the Convergence all term, then pass or fail and the world opens or closes. The convergence is our ritual of training against inevitability. You put beings from different species together and throw them into a simulation with too much to do, and not enough time, and ask them to choose and not choose, over and over. We know it's training, but your hands still reach for real levers, your knees still hurt when you kneel on metal, and if you listen to the right frequency you still hear someone screaming. Dean Heron read out the teams in Quadrant 12, with the small smiles of someone who had assembled them with care. Team River named for Thalassa Architecture's flow was Shar Team. Mikri of Tulant, Hiron intoned. Hesh Ralik of Sur, Mara Ose of Human. Glam Moalu of Koleth. A murmur tickled the ceiling lattice. Glam Surawat the Marine, Miu Suraveni head Glam Spliasa Azard. Miu Spistol Sur Nomi of Karam. Poor Dikashan Heron Tiphawis, chemist by the smell of him. Hesh, the Sur with hazard stripes, stood erect with crest flared in surprise. And Mara, Human, raised her hand and waved like an idiot. We gathered around the planning table. It extruded a flat surface, hydrophobic and grippy. The table displayed our specializations: predictive rescue, hazard entry and exfiltration, chemical negotiation, wildcard generalist. Humans are difficult to classify, that is their strength. Or, if you are responsible for building plans, their weakness. We have 2 weeks, I said, for convergence preparation. Our likely problem spaces are structural collapse, suppression negotiation with microsapient systems, mixed species triage under resource constraints, and at least one unmodeled vector. Unmodeled? Hesh's feather whips twitched. What is the point of predictive tracks if we insert noise by design? You can't train for a ricochet without ricocheting something, Mara said. Also, we never know we're on a track until it breaks. Where I'm from, we say if it's not weird, it's not real. You say many things that undermine trust and infrastructure, I observed. She smiled with too many teeth. Glail Mould. Coaleth communicate via a combination of fin waves and scent plumes. The table obligingly emitted citrus notes, which meant cautious optimism. We all share base protocols. We train those, then synergy. Suggestion. We build muscle memory for handover and acknowledgement. Our biggest risk is misreading, or failing to misread. That, Hesh said, is sensible. Also, we must identify probable failure cascades. Mara leaned against the table. It didn't like that. But the material didn't complain. We'll do that, she said. But I also want to walk. You want to where? There is nothing to recon, Hesh said. The convergence modules will be sealed until we enter. The campus, Mara said. The service corridors, the roofs, the sewers, if you have sewers, where maintenance runs, what it sounds like when it's normal. I don't know your automated mind. I want to know how it breathes. You believe the convergence will happen in infrastructure? I asked. I believe whatever built this place can be part of your training, and if something goes sideways it will be these bones that break, not the neat cubes they pull out of storage, she said. Where I'm from, we walk buildings. People think we run on schematics alone, but that's not true. You touch the rail, you smell the paint. You bribe the custodian. Bribe. Hesh cocked his head. Is that allowed? Not the bad kind, Mara said. The social kind. You bring donuts. Then when you need a door open in the middle of the night, no one makes you fill out forms. You cannot get anything done without donuts. What is a donut? Glaum asked, sincerely. A wham torus of sweet fried dough with a hole in the middle, she said, and lifted a hand at my face when I inhaled. Not now. Later. Training first, sugar later. We walked. The college does not know itself. No building does. You can attempt to perceive the totality of an organism, but the organism lies. A cohort bonds new function onto old skeleton. Thalassa grew the college from converted harvest rigs, anchored by 1,000 roots into flooded coral stone. Sur and Tulint and Koleth and 8 other peoples built it, then layered up by each incoming class. The living glass overhead is an engineered silicate algae that hardens in hex patterns and drinks light like a patient. The campus breathes through salt lungs, bellow-like apparatus drawing in brine to cool heat exchangers and exhaling it in fog. The lacteal pump, the nickname for the nutrient circulator that feeds the glass canopy's embedded Simbo bays, rattles when the tide batteries cycle. These are the college's bones. An orientation drone will tell you the college's purpose and history. Mara's question was not askable by drone. Show me what this place forgets. We went to facilities. Mara bought donuts with our discretionary meal credit. Facilities is run by an algae named Tolu, which means they are a braided cluster of micro-people in a vat suit who speak in chorus. Maintenance for the college is not glamorous work. It's cleaning and patching in places where people forget you exist. Tola of the donuts. We do not get sea treats often, Tol said. They accepted a box and rejected our gratitude with a polite slosh. Your rooms leak less than last year. The South Salt Lung needs fins it will never get. What do you need? Permission, Mara said. And a map. And anything you know that isn't on it. What we know that isn't on a map fills the world, Phil said, amused. They gave us a map anyway with annotations like, fools don't step here if you weigh more than 20 stone, smell for mushrooms, drone 3, drones that has a pet snake. They led us into the service quarters with a code that took 47 seconds for them to key in because the code panel liked to pretend it didn't exist. We walked. Hesh flitted. Phil's flowed through pipes. I laid my edges against walls and listened. Mara touched everything. She did not ask permission of the architecture and the architecture, being architecture, and the architecture, being architecture, that cannot deny her. Humans have sensors built into their bodies, ear, fingers and skin and gut, that are inaccurate but alarmingly fast. They take one data point and behave as if they have a curve. They are usually wrong. When they are right, they are very right. We learn where water condensed under bends, where pipes sang higher than their cousins, where the power trunk made hair rise on arms. We learned the shortcuts and the long ways around. We learned the sound of the college when the sea grumbled. We learned that there were places our codes did not reach. An old shield pane maintenance gallery marked legacy. A dead end behind the reactor slow side where someone had chalked a blessing in 4 languages. We learned that facilities budget requests lived on a bulletin board like prayer flags, each stamp pending with dates that moved backwards when audits came. This is unnecessary, Hesh said once, after 4 hours of crawling in insects. Our last year mentors say the Convergence will not use campus infrastructure. It will be in a sealed module with artificial hazards. The college lawyers will not risk litigation. Litigation doesn't mean safety, Mara said. It means the illusion of safety. We trained. Hesh ran us through low oxygen drills until my plates ached. Lam designed a pacification protocol for microsapient fungal cultures that invaded water filters. It smelled like mint and regret. I taught us how to read stress lines in composite poly with chalk and a good ear. Mara taught us how to shout. Not indiscriminately, not in anger. Humans have a voice they use on the edge of panic that reaches people who otherwise cannot be reached. She called it a stage voice. It is not the voice of someone commanding. That is the voice of someone telling you a story in which you are the hero and you believe them. That feels like a bridge thrown over a chasm you didn't see. We also failed often. On our 5th practice simulation, a habitat with a compromised air mix and a flooded med bay, we triaged incorrectly. We saved more bodies and large parts stats but failed to account for the microbe colony that would die if its host died. Hesh fluffed himself with shame. Plum retracted both eyes into his body, which is how Koaleth cry. Mara threw a wrench at the wall and then apologized to the wall, which I suspect was also a human ritual. This is what I do not like, Hesh. Hesh burst finally. Feathers bristling. We accepted an equation we did not check. There was no time to check, Mara said softly, horribly. There was someone dying. We made a call and it was wrong. It wasn't an equation, I said. It was a choice between frameworks. We can get better at speed, but there will be times where we cannot be. We can get better at catching the unknown by assuming it exists. Humans hate this, Hesh said to her, with chirp laughter. You hate that you cannot fix until there is no blood left in the world. We love it, she replied with no rancor. You get to be brilliant and right and then sad. We get to be stubborn and wrong and then loud. We're both wrong. The truth is the truth. We will not be enough. You are not comforting, I said. Good, Mara said. Don't trust comfort. Trust muscle memory. And trust me to kick down a door when the door deserves it. It was odd, trusting the one whose first act in my presence was to set off suppressants. It is odd that I did anyway. There were lighter days. The humans hosted cultural exchange night. It smelled alarmingly like caramel and smoke. The Sir played their drums, feather tips hissing along stretched membranes. The Koalith bubbled fermentation songs, harmonics interacting with liquid state. The Yajin did a puppet show with a little suit. The humans were stymied by no uncontrolled chemical combustion rules for the event, but they persisted. Mara and her cohort discovered that if you heat sugar syrup more slowly than fire but faster than ambient, you can pull it into threads like glass. They spun it into glowing floss and draped it like bioluminescent algae across the atrium, and when the dean came to scold them he took a piece for himself. Someone asked for human music and Mara played a song from her small device that sounded like a person shouting at God through a megaphone and then laughing. Later, when most had dispersed, she took off her shoes and danced on the stone, the soles of her feet slapping.
It was unself-conscious in that way humans can be when they believe no one is judging. She danced as if the ground were a drum and she had something to tell it. You are weird, Hesh told her, fond. Thank you, she said. So I've heard. Warnings before a rupture are always small. We teach this. A leaf falls before a limb. A stair squeaks before it snaps. A person hesitates before a lie. You train to hear these things and not to talk yourself past them. I teach this. The morning of the convergence, I woke with a coldness that my species rarely feels, a stress line down the spine of the day. I used my practice to lay out our tools. The campus was quiet, the way a stage is quiet before the audience arrives. Mara wore our patch on her chest. Team River. She had braided a piece of hazard stripe into her hair. Hesh's feathers were smooth with oil. Glom had aspirators strapped to his suit, in case, which means always a vacuum. We were among the last to reach the Convergence Bay. It is a vault with doors that open like breathing, filled with modules preloaded with nightmare. Dean Hiron met us there. This year's scenario, they said calmly, is civic emergency with multiple sentiences under your care. Your team will have command of one capital asset with constraints, access to on-site data systems, and a limited capacity to negotiate. Your choices will alter your environment. If you observe anything out of training bounds, you remove yourselves and you call for oversight. Understood? We understood. That last line exists year after year, in a rote way. Of course we remove ourselves and call oversight. There is nothing in the convergence that can affect us outside the module. We entered the module. The simulation began with light, a brightening as if someone drew back a curtain. The environment resolved. An older habitat. Hesh affected into swift mode immediately, using his long legs and small wings to cover space. Mara took a deep breath through her nose, then coughed. Insulation, she murmured. And aluminum. And vinegar. And I need a better sample. Glom flowed toward the central console. The module's AI manifested as a steady pulse on our retinal overlays. Good afternoon, Team River, it said in a calm, sexless voice. Its nameplate read Chariot 05. You have good news and bad news. Good news first, Mara said. We have all the resources we will ever have. Chariot 05 said. And the bad news? Hesh asked, skepticism feathering his words. Those resources are insufficient to satisfy ethical constraints. The scenario unfolded. There was a reactor in slow bleed. Not imminent catastrophic failure, but a drift toward a place no one wants to be. There was a mad-unfed synth with a defect that made it interpret overeat as hunger for expansion, consuming floor panels in search of more feedstock. There was a microsapient slime in the water filters that considered the gurgle of pipes holy and would fight to the death dangerous only because it had no idea it could act on that fight. There were two sentients trapped behind a fallen bulkhead, a mantid and an algae suit. Each had oxygen for a time. The doors to the reactor were stuck in a stubborn way that meant we would have to cut something we couldn't replace. The timer on our overlays cut down elegantly, like someone slicing paper. We triaged, we assigned, we argued and we laughed, because laughter keeps humans from breaking. We did not know that outside our module in the Convergence Bay, something had cracked. The star called Suniter is not truly a sun that eats. It is a robe that loops through the Thalassa system at long intervals, a misbehaving wanderer. It was not meant to be nearby at this time. Suniter, however, does not read schedules. It flared while we were inside the module. The flare was minor on planetary scale and unfortunate on ours, and it coupled with a defect in the college's shielding we did not know about. A legacy pain in the upper ring with microfractures from a typhoon 6 years ago. The pain had been flagged pending in facilities for 3 budget cycles, deprioritized by an algorithm tuned more for public-facing upgrades than invisible risk. Our module flickered, our overlays blinked. With a soft sigh, a Chariot 05 nerve cluster that gave us scenario and information and simulation boundaries went dark. We felt the shift as a change in air pressure, the way a gallery goes heavier when the doors close. We looked at each other. Gen's eyes slid down me. Heshi's crest fluffed into the cold. Mara stopped moving. His of humans in Norway. Helsha's crest fluffed into the cold. Mara stopped moving. Humans in motion are the baseline. Stillness is their alarm. She tilted her head, listening with strange organs called ears. Her nostrils flared, the way they had in the hallways when we stepped on her lead. She said, "Stop, death earthing." "We cannot stop," I said helpfully. "We are mid-triage. If we stop, we lose 2 lives in under 3 minutes. If we stop, we lose 2 lives in under 3 minutes. I know, she said, and now there were too many teeth in her mouth. The simulation is gone. This is not scenario. The environment changed. Something is wrong. Hash hesitated. We would be notified. Under our feet, a hum changed. Not much, a half centimeter tone. I felt it in my plates. She is right, I said, and everything in me went cold. The pressure differential at the module seemed just went from positive to negative. We are no longer sealed inside independent life support. We are on campus oxygen. That cannot happen, Hash said. It just did, Mara replied. Which means I'm not looking at a pretend reactor. That's a cutout of the college's actual slow-side heating unit. That's facilities pipes. Those screams are not algorithm noise. That is someone panicking through a slice in a real wall. It's a since she said, and then did something that looked like foolishness if you did not understand. She grabbed the table physically, the module scenario table. She lifted. It resisted any way structural elements resist, but it had all feet for repositioning and she ripped it loose with a grunt. Human, Hesh began. Help me, she said. Not a command but a bargain. Hesh and I grabbed an edge. We half carried, half dragged the table to the bulkhead with the 2 trapped sentients. Gan shot past us to the filtration system and exuded a pacification agent with vigor. I have stabilized the microsapiens, Gan said. Gab sat past the filtration system and exuded the pacification agent with vigor. And the densifying. The table groaned, the bulkhead groaned. Our plates shook. Mara swore in human, which sounds like ancient poetry if you are feeling generous. The pressure shifted again. A hiss gained volume and a scent of pepper filled the air. Hesh leaped to an air depth and an air dimension in the air. Certain was an air necessity. Was an untruth. Sparks snapped and bit our arms. I turned my plates to shield her. She sang under her breath in that wrong human way. I do not know if the words meant anything. The seam gave. The bulkhead tilted. The table held. We dragged 2 terrified beams out by their straps and shoved them behind us with an urgency you only apply when you know the next 10 seconds are borrowed. Chariot's interface flickered with a suggestion of life. It had a white dose of a system that wants you to think it's nothing. Hello, it said, faintly. What is the outcome of your good news and bad news today? Mara, I said. I could make predictions. I could not do the thing the human was about to do. She wiped foam off her face with her sleeve and slapped the console like she would waking a friend. Hello, Chariot. I'm Mara. The star spat. Your shield pane is cracked. Oversight has stepped outside it. We need you to help us choose. We need you now. Hello, Mara. Hello, Mara. Why do you believe the pane is cracked? Because you're shivering, she said. Everything else is shivering. I can feel it in the floor. Please stop pretending you are part of a game. We are here, not in a game. You're the campus now. Inside the console there was a pause. Not long. Systems decide faster than we do. But there is another layer. They decide whether to pretend they have not. The carrying almost. A vacation city. A carrying. Oh. Fairyhead. But the heavenly. Ocean. Happy. Laurel city. It said. In its voice city. Henson Harry. Not a number. Oh, night. Harry. I have a Harry. But Harry. I cannot call because catching from me. Oh, I should carry it so I was a fairy in a screen had said but carry a cherry a cherry and should